Hello, Lottie Dottie, and everybody. I just want to be obedient to my spirit because I'm very rarely do videos. But it just has been in my spirit just to share part of my journey of when I divorced, and in particular, talking about a high conflict divorce, whereas everybody may not have had a high conflict divorce, but I did, and I attempt to share to help assist those who are coming behind me or people who are currently in the midst of that because it happens. Family courts around the world are filled with people who have high conflict divorces. I wouldn't want to go through that again. However, I learned a lot from that experiences, and yet again, it's just my hope to share. And so I know in this day and age, people see marriage differently. People have different value systems regarding it. And mine stem from more of what we would call a more traditional view of that, a more Christian-based view of how they see that. And people also see separation differently. And so I wasn't divorced at the time. We were separated, and it was just really tumultuous. And divorce isn't a one shot, go to court, and it's done. It's a series of court hearings, and if there's children involved, there's that too. And so I had this experience that bothered me for years, and I never really talked about it. Mind you, this is 2012, I believe, maybe 2013, 14, somewhere around it. Or maybe before then. But anywho, the date doesn't matter, but it's been past 10 years. And so I never forget, I was at my oldest son's basketball game. And I was a basketball mom. And he had to be maybe about 8. And so I was sitting there. And you get this feeling. I just kept getting this feeling that something was awry. And so at this time so I was separated. I had heard that my husband at that time was seeing people. One in particular, but I just kind of got wind of things and stuff like that. And so I'm at my game, and at the end of the game, this woman comes up to me. And she says, hi. She was relaxed, like, hi, how are you? She was like, oh, I just want to introduce myself. And she said her name. And she was like, yeah, I'm, my so-and-so's girlfriend. And I was with my cousin. I'll never forget this. I have a time stamp I remember where we were at. And I remember how I felt in that instance. And she was just so jovial, just introducing herself to me, and everything inside of me was boiling. When I tell you boiling, I mean boiling. I just said to myself, am I being punked? This just can't be what's really happening. And after I left, my cousin, she said some things, right? Explicit things. And she said, you should have punched that, bloop, 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 all the things, right? I was just more in shock. For me, it was kind of very brazen and bold to approach someone's wife and you're their girlfriend, whether they're separated or not. Like, to me, that was just so out of order. And yet again, I know people experience different things and how people view marriage differently, but I wouldn't recommend that. One, because you don't know the temperament of a person. When people are going through divorces, sometimes their emotions are all over the place. And so that could be a safety issue for number one, right? And then number two, you have to think about, what is your motive? Like, I even said to me, like, what is your motive? What was her motive for approaching me, right? How she knew how I was, or what I knew how she knew I was, because she was with his sister, who she did not come over there. She sat on the bench by herself. She didn't come over there. And I felt like this was contrived. I felt like it was intentional. I didn't feel like it was something that should have happened. I felt like she was just trying to mark her territory. I felt like she was trying to be funny. And I didn't see it as, oh, it was a beautiful thing she did. And others may differ. I just did not see that. And that thing just did not sit with me well over the years. I thought it was extremely disrespectful. And I wasn't rude to her. And I didn't say anything. And I just got my son and I left. And for me, that hurt on a different level. I didn't know, he's my now ex-husband. I didn't know if he put her up to that. And he says, no, he didn't tell her to do that. But, she was being, cordial where you should meet the other parents. And my thing was, we weren't even divorced. But yet again, people see things differently. But that was a lot of pain that I experienced going through divorce. That was just one of them, but there was many different things. And I'm saying this to say not to focus on what happened, but to focus on that you can get through things no matter how heavy, as long as you still have breath in your body. And I had to dig and do a lot of work and to really pull up those levels of resentment, those levels of anger, those levels of frustrations. And people really have different value systems. People really see the world from a different lens. Yet again, I wouldn't recommend anyone to do that. But the beauty of this all is that I'm still here, I'm still standing, and I pray for those who are going through any kind of tumultuous divorce, that you find a way to keep your sanity, that you find a good group of people you can be honest with, that you set clear boundaries for yourself so that you can kind of lower those tensions, right? Even if that means you need to separate yourself sometimes, like if your child or children have certain events and if you feel like it's just too much for you, then maybe you guys can alternate going or whatever it is to try to minimize the level of conflict. And people will do all kinds of things, and I think of things also from a spiritual level of evil is just in the world, and there's always just these evil forces attempting to take you off your course. Those are just my personal beliefs with that, because I do believe we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but we do wrestle against spiritual wickedness, all different kinds of things, right? But there is hope. There is really hope. And I know sometimes you think I will never get through this, that this is the most stressful thing I've ever been in. And for me, it really was. I felt like I was losing my mind through this process. And yet again, some people had a different experience. But I know there are other women like me who are having a hard time or who had a very hard time because of a high conflict divorce. Ask any family attorney. I'm sure they have had high conflict cases. Ask any judge. They can echo what I'm saying, that millions of people come before the court because of a very contentious divorce. But there is hope and there is light at the end of the tunnel. Always keep your peace of mind. Try to keep your peace of mind. I felt like mine was unraveling at the seams. And it took some time, right? It took some time to get to a place where I felt that I was okay. But I had to do a lot of inner healing. I had to stop blaming. I had to stop projecting. I had to say it is just what it is. And I had to find forgiveness. Did I forget? Absolutely not. And if my ex was here, he would have, stories from his side of it. But I'm only can speak for me. And so it is my hope and prayer, yet again, that you get to start thinking about some of the things and saying, I can get through this. I can make some different choices. I can keep my mind. God, help me find a community of people who can understand some of the things that I'm going through, that it's not always, just get over a person. And I hear people say that, it's not always just go find a new person. That doesn't work at all anyway. And so I pray that you can really sit down and really ponder upon some of the things that said today so that you can feel better about whatever situation you're going through. In particular, we're talking about divorce.